While we are on the air, and welcome everybody from all over. I can see the UK, the United States, everywhere in the country, in the world. I'm Dr. Gustavo Tolosa. I am not a medical doctor, though. I am a doctor in music, so I could help you with anything related to music. Well, I'm also a passionate advocate of plant-based diet, and I do some coaching with food, basically. But today we're here because this is a privilege that I have and that we all have in this hour that we're going to spend together with one of the most amazing and renowned doctors in the world, Dr. Esselstyn, Caldwell Esselstyn. And we have also his lovely wife, Anne. And I've asked them to be here together, and we will chat for a little while. Then we will talk about some interesting topics, and we'll address some of your questions. I am sure that we won't have time to get to all the questions, but we'll do the best to answer as many as possible. I know that all of you know who Dr. Esselstyn is. Who doesn't? But just in case, for anybody that may be out of the country, overseas, and this is the first time that you log in, just a little bit about Dr. Esselstyn. He received his AB from Yale University in 1956 and his MD from Western Reserve University School of Medicine in 1961. And then, very interesting, exciting, in 1956, he received a gold medal in rowing at the Olympics Games. His biography is incredible. I will put the link to his website so that you can visit it and learn more about the events and other things he does and read his bio. He has received the 1915 Plantation Project Luminary Award, the Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine 2016 Distinguished Alumni Award, and the American College of Lifestyle Medicine 2016 Lifetime Achievement Award. His publications number up in the 150 or so, and of course, his groundbreaking book and research called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease just paved the way to this amazing revolution that we're seeing today with food and health. And currently, he directs the Cardiovascular Disease Prevention and Reversal Program at the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute. So with all that, I have the privilege of presenting you Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn and Esselstyn. How are you both doing today?
Fine. Thank you, Gustavo, for those kind words. We're delighted to be with you. I have no idea what you're going to ask me, but then again, let's give it a whirl, and I'll do the best I can.
All right, excellent. How are you doing, Anne?
Well, just fine. We had a little crisis, but we solved it. My computer was out of gas, and so we had to move directions to plug in.
So you're at your home, right?
Yeah, we're in Cleveland.
In Cleveland.
Ohio.
All right. Very good. Very good. Just tell us a little bit about, I know you're so active and I know you travel for lectures, but what do you all have any events coming up, any programs that you do in a certain location?
Yeah, every month at the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute, I have a intensive 6-hour seminar for persons who have cardiovascular disease, and really the whole focus is to show them how they have created their disease and precisely how they can be empowered as the locus of control to halt and to reverse their disease. On the other hand, my daughter Jane and Anne have a program for heart disease for women, and actually this year it's not only heart disease for women, but it's also about trying to prevent Alzheimer's disease and dementia.
And that's March 9th at the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute. It's Jane's program that she's been putting on for the last 4 years.
Wow, 4 years.
Yeah.
And then in the future, I think we have a trip coming up sometime this year to Iceland and later on to Denmark, which will be kind of.
And then, of course,
exciting.
we've got all these wonderful events that our son Rip puts on.
Right.
Some 10-day, some 7-day, 5-day programs that are fun in North Carolina and in Sedona.
Oh, wow. Those are beautiful places. Now that you mentioned Iceland and Denmark, I was there in last October. I had never been. What a beautiful country. Are you giving lectures there?
Yes.
Okay, great. And you have a trip coming up in Texas. Is it this week, next week?
Later this week.
Yes. All right. And just so that everybody knows that we are actually live, this is February 18th of 2019. Okay. So where are you going to be in Texas, Dr. Esselstyn?
Edinburgh.
What about you, Anne? How do you spend your days? What kind of, do you have any projects, any plans? What do you do?
We just lie in bed all day and watch TV.
Good. All right. You probably deserve it. Okay.
Way. He is on the phone all day with patients across the country and the world. Yeah, our daughter Jane has written the recipes for 3 of our son Rip's books, and she and I wrote the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease Cookbook, which is really pairs with my husband's Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease beautifully.
Right. And I want to show it to people. I have it here. That's it, right?
Yes.
I'm in Argentina, and believe it or not, I have made room in my suitcase to bring it.
Good.
Yeah. All right.
And this is my husband's book.
And that is the book that everybody should have on the shelves. I've read it many times, and it's brilliant. And thank you, Dr. Esselstyn, for that was a monumental work. I'm sure. Does cholesterol really matter when talking about heart disease, and specifically talking about someone in the ideal situation, a person that follows a plant-based diet with no oil and eats strictly plant-based and theoretically has very healthy arteries. Does it matter if a person has elevated cholesterol? And does it matter if it's the bad cholesterol, good cholesterol? Would you just kind of talk about this topic that creates so much confusion in people's minds?
Well, I think let's sort of start with where everybody seems to be in agreement. And that is that where this disease has its inception, its onset, its beginning, is when we progressively injure the life jacket and the guardian of our blood vessel, which happens to be that delicate innermost layer called the endothelium. And what makes the endothelium so remarkable is the fact that it produces a magic molecule of gas called nitric oxide. And it is nitric oxide that is truly the great guardian and protector of all of our blood vessels because of its remarkable functions. Those functions include it keeps all the cellular elements within our bloodstream flowing smoothly like Teflon rather than Velcro. It keeps things from getting sticky. Number 2, nitric oxide is the strongest blood vessel dilator in the body. When you climb stairs, the arteries to your heart, the arteries to your legs, they widen, they dilate. That's nitric oxide. Number 3, nitric oxide will protect the wall of the artery from becoming thickened, stiff, or inflamed, protect us from getting high blood pressure or hypertension. Number 4, now here is the absolute key. A safe and normal amount of nitric oxide will protect us all from ever developing blockages or plaque. So literally, everybody on the planet, once they have developed cardiovascular disease, it is because by now, in the preceding decades, they have so seriously trashed, injured, and compromised the capacity of their endothelial cells to make nitric oxide they simply don't have enough nitric oxide to protect themselves from making these blockages in plaque. However, the good news here is this. This is not a malignancy. This is a completely benign foodborne illness. And once you can get those patients to stop ever again, pass through their lips anything that is going to further injure an endothelial system that is already a train wreck, then the endothelial system begins to recover, makes enough nitric oxide. So not only is the disease halted, but often we can see elements of disease reversal. Now, what are the foods that every time they pass our lips, we injure the endothelial capacity to make nitric oxide? They are, 1, any drop of oil: olive oil, corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, coconut oil, palm oil, oil in a cracker, oil in a piece of bread, oil in a salad dressing. Oil injures the endothelial system, as does anything with a mother or a face: meat, fish, chicken, fowl, turkey, and eggs, and anything that is dairy: milk, cream, butter, cheese, ice cream, and yogurt, and sugary drinks: Pepsis, Cokes, and sugary foods: cakes, pies, cookies, stevia, agave, excess of maple syrup, molasses, and honey. And for the patients who have heart disease, I also don't like them to have coffee with caffeine, which will injure the endothelial cell. Now, you're probably wondering, what is there left to eat? Marvelous, marvelous. Should I go stop it? Do you want me to tell them what to eat?
Please, it never hurts to reiterate.
Right. You're going to have all these marvelous whole grains for your cereal, bread, pasta, rolls, and bagels, and 101 different types of legumes, lentils, and beans. All these marvelous red, yellow, and green leafy vegetables, and sweet potatoes, and white potatoes, and some fruit. And there are many of hundreds of wonderful recipes for these in several books that are out there today besides our own. You mentioned a point about cholesterol, and there's no question that you know, when you uncover and analyze the plaque in the artery, there is cholesterol in the plaque. So cholesterol is a part of this. But remember this, that if you are eating in a way that you are maintaining an endothelial fortress, remember the endothelial cells separate with one tiny layer. They separate the flowing blood from the arterial wall. So if you've got a lousy endothelial system with cracks and fissures and openings in it, now the cholesterol can misbehave, wander through into the subendothelial space where it begins this nasty cascade of oxidative inflammation and the formation of plaque. However, if you are eating in a way that you never injure the endothelial wall, the endothelium is an absolute fortress. There is no crack and fissure and opening. Then if your cholesterol is slightly elevated, it's not going to be damaging to you because you've got a protected endothelium. Now, what are the foods that I want you to eat? In addition, it's something we've just started here in the last 7 years, I would say, that I usually ask the patients that I'm seeing with a new diagnosis of heart disease, imagine if they could shrink their head to a size that it could crawl inside that artery. They would look at that blockage. And what they would see would be an absolute cauldron of oxidative inflammation. So we need antioxidants. No, do not go down to the health food store and buy a jug of pills that says antioxidant, because it won't work and it's going to be harmful. I need these patients to get their antioxidants from food. Fair enough. What food? Food that is high in what we call ORAC value. ORAC. Oxygen radical absorptive capacity. So this means that if you're having raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, and blackberries on your morning oat cereal, that's a terrific start. However, nothing actually can trump the antioxidant value of green leafy vegetables. So I ask these patients to chew, not smoothies, not juicing. I want them to chew a green leafy vegetable that is roughly the size of their fist after it has first been boiled in water or steamed, 5.5 to 6 minutes so it's nice and tender. Then you must anoint it with several drops of a delightful balsamic vinegar. Why? Because the acetic acid in the balsamic vinegar has been shown to restore the nitric oxide synthase enzyme contained within the endothelial cell that is responsible for making nitric oxide. So these patients are going to chew this green leafy vegetable alongside their breakfast cereal, again as a mid-morning snack, again with their lunch and sandwich. That's 3, mid-afternoon 4, dinner time 5, and of course I adore it when they have that evening snack of kale. What are you doing? All day long you are basking and you are bathing that oxidative cauldron of inflammation with nature's most powerful antioxidant. Now you're probably wondering, what are the greens that I'm talking about? They are bok choy, Swiss chard, kale, collards, collard greens, beet greens, mustard green, turnip greens, Napa cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cilantro, parsley, spinach, and arugula, and asparagus. And the top 5 are kale, Swiss chard, spinach, arugula, and beet greens. And look what it does for your memory.
I need to make a song with that. It just sounds so beautiful the way you say it. So what, Dr. Esselstyn, why exactly is it that you are recommending to cook these green vegetables?
Because I think the data indicates that when you break down the cell barriers with cooking, there's a much better absorption of all these marvelous phytonutrients. Now, the other advantage of the green, besides restoring, remember, it's the nitric oxide. That's the absolute key that we want. And that when you are chewing the green, that you are chewing a nitrate. And as you chew, that nitrate is going to mix with the facultative anaerobic bacteria that reside in the crypts and grooves of your tongue. And those bacteria are going to reduce the nitrate that you are chewing in your mouth. It is going to be reduced to a nitrite. Now, when you swallow the nitrite, it is further reduced by your own gastric acid to more nitric oxide. Right. That's the second thing you get from the green. Third thing, when you are chewing these greens, they stimulate your bone marrow to produce the endothelial progenitor cells. What are they? The endothelial progenitor cells replace your senescent, injured, worn out endothelial cells.
So eat your greens.
Eat your greens. And do you cook large volumes of greens so that they're always available and you don't have to go to the kitchen and cook every
You can do
I
that.
can do that. I also try and incorporate greens in some way in everything. You know, if we're having pasta, I'll put a whole head of kale in as I'm cooking it. If I'm making a pizza, I'll have a whole head of kale mixed in the pizza sauce that goes on first. I mean, you know, in soups, I mean, greens are a huge part.
Right. So that's a great way for people to incorporate it in just about everything they make.
Yeah.
Dr. Esselstyn, someone was asking if lemon juice would have this similar effect to the balsamic vinegar, or if it's different.
Yeah, I don't know. It may, but I'm unaware that it has been tested in the research setting, so I don't think I can answer that.
Do you all have a favorite type of balsamic vinegar, or just anything?
Well, you can get, pretty cheap balsamic vinegars at the grocery store, but we discovered when a friend gave us a good vinegar, it was made by the Olive Tap, and they come in every possible flavor you've ever heard of.
Yes, I know.
tried some good balsamic vinegars, it's kind of magic.
It is.
It
It is.
Many of our patients just like the balsamic vinegars on their salads, nothing else.
Nothing else, right?
So it's yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
And Dr. Esselstyn, just tell us one more time, because this really what they need to be doing is chewing their greens. Juicing them or blending them doesn't do quite the trick, right?
Well, that's right. I think that the when you juice or blend or make smoothies of greens, they're usually so tart that people like to sweeten them. And the way they sweeten it is they throw in an apple or an orange or banana. And I have no trouble with people eating an orange or a banana, because when you chew that fruit, the fructose is bound to the fiber and the absorption is really quite reasonable and slow and safe. When you get orange juice or apple juice, or you beat up this fruit in a smoothie, now you've separated the fructose from the fiber, and this goes off like a rocket in your stomach, injures liver, glycates protein, and injures the endothelial cells.
It's best to chew your food, but if you have no teeth or are sick,
Right.
smoothies are good.
Exactly. Well, it's better than nothing. But there's nothing wrong with eating these green vegetables raw as well, correct?
That's fine. It takes a long time to do that.
Right.
To get as much as you would if you cook. You can cook a whole bunch of kale and it'll fit in the palm of your hand, versus it will fill a bowl that you have to chew forever.
Right.
When you think about it, I've really never gotten excited about going to some gathering where people will present you a tray of raw vegetables, of raw carrots and raw they're good. Raw carrots and raw mushrooms and raw broccoli. I mean, come on. I mean, I'd love it if they give me a tray with those all cooked.
I know. Yes. Much easier to eat. And the flavor really comes out more.
Yeah, you cook it.
Does it concern you at all, the amount of sugar that these balsamic vinegars have, or is that not of a concern?
Well, when I ask people to put a few drops on their
just a few drops.
I'm not asking them to swim in it. I think
there's no added sugar. It's the grape.
And the research doesn't seem to indicate that that's a problem.
You are well known for the screaming to the top of your lungs, "No oil!" Okay. So, and this, Dr. Esselstyn, I don't think we can never say it enough. Please tell us no oil, and just, if you don't mind, give us a little explanation of how does oil of any type, and it doesn't matter, cause inflammation?
Well, what seems to happen, and I think by now that what we're really striving for in cardiovascular disease really is to restore nitric oxide.
Right.
Because that's what's been depleted. I mean, if we look at, for example, the autopsy studies of young women and men between the ages of 17 and 34 who have died of accidents, homicides, and suicides, cardiovascular disease is already ubiquitous. Not enough for their cardiac events yet, but here the disease is already established. So we really want to avoid foods that are going to injure the endothelium. And in study after study after study with oil, it shows there is injury to the endothelial cell. And the endothelial cell makes that magic molecule of nitric oxide, which is the great protector. So it's very difficult for me to embrace something which is going to injure the endothelial cells. Now, sadly, oil is at this point practically omnipresent. When you see there really wasn't that much commercial processed or home cooking oils in the 19th century, but along comes the 20th century, and somewhere around, I think it was the late teens, early 20s, when this oil became much more prominent. And it was used as a preservative in many of our foodstuffs. And it also was a time when families began occasionally to begin eating out at restaurants. And how many restaurants do you think you know of that will cook without oil? It's practically universal. Remember now, there are 4 reasons to go out to eat at a restaurant. 1, you don't have to do the cooking. 2, you don't have to do the dishes. 3, the ambiance. 4, the companionship. But you never, ever go out to a restaurant to destroy more endothelial cells. So you've got to talk to the waiter or the waitress, make sure they understand that you are deathly allergic to a drop of any oil. Then you will search over the menu. Lo and behold, there doesn't seem to be anything there. But you also remind her that you're allergic to any animal protein. Nothing can be dairy or sugar. Well, they're kind of getting desperate, so you say, I'd like to see the chef. And you explain to the chef that you are deathly allergic to a drop of oil, cannot have animal protein or dairy or sugar, and he or she will smile at you and say, I'll be back in 24 minutes with a wonderful dish. Lo and behold, here comes a baked potato, or you may have beans and rice. And it really is quite creative what they can do. But really, there's absolutely no excuse to say anything less than no oil. You cannot have it, because I know many people that will eat out let's say twice a week, 3 times a week. What is that? That's 104 days out of 365 that you're still destroying your endothelial cells. And it's incredibly terrible for somebody who's ever had heart disease to eat out. Remember this. What is the reason they've got heart disease in the first place? Because they have so trashed their endothelial cells to such a low level, they aren't making enough nitric oxide to protect themselves. So what are they doing if they eat out twice a week? That's 104 days of 365 that they're taking this critical level of endothelial health. And my Lord, they're even lowering it further than when they had their first heart attack. Now they're going to do what? They're going to have another heart attack. It doesn't have to happen. Remember this. In the planet Earth, half of the planet has no heart disease at all. It's virtually non-existent. Why? Because people thrive on whole food, plant-based nutrition without oil. If you're a cardiac surgeon and you're going to hang out your shingle in Okinawa, the Papua Highlands, rural China, Central Africa, the Tarahumara Indians in northern Mexico, forget it. You better plan on selling pencils. Why? They don't have cardiovascular disease. Why? Because they don't eat any of those foods that are going to injure their endothelial cells. No oil. You know, it's really important to emphasize here the fact many people will say that the Mediterranean diet, is very uncertain where its origins are. Start looking around the Mediterranean Sea. What about, my gracious, look at all those countries. You think Egypt is free of heart disease? You think many of those other countries, is Greece free of heart disease? Is Italy free of heart disease? No. And what happens is the Mediterranean diet is loaded with oil. As a matter of fact, this is a study that I have criticized before, and it's the so-called Predimed study outside of outside of Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something like 5,000 people followed over 5 years. And there were 3 different types of diets that the participants would ask to adhere to. There were the group that followed the Mediterranean diet with oil, Mediterranean diet with nuts, and then the so-called low-fat 37 to 39% fat diet. There was no whole food plant-based diet in the program. I couldn't believe this. The title of it was the prevention of cardiovascular disease through the Mediterranean diet. And I was called by a writer from the New York Times saying, Dr. Esselstyn, this doesn't seem to agree with what you were saying. How do you respond to it? And I said, well, let's just look at it carefully and see what we can say. In every single one of those diet groups, nobody was allowed to enter the study unless they had a complete absence of any diagnosis of cardiovascular disease. All right? Nice, clean, disease-free population. At the end of 5 years, in every single category of diet that they were administering, there were scores of patients who had sustained major cardiovascular disease events, heart attack, stroke, and death. How can you possibly ever entitle a study, Prevention of Cardiovascular Disease with the Mediterranean Diet, when people who had no disease at the outset, by the time that was concluded, 5 years, scores of patients in every one of these categories had sustained major cardiovascular events, heart disease, stroke, and death. So I responded to the New York Times writer and I said, look, I think you got the title wrong. It should be the creation of cardiovascular disease with the Mediterranean diet.
The sad thing, Dr. Esselstyn, and is that these types of studies are the ones that do so much damage because people get so confused and they hear this.
Who do you think funded the study?
Yes, the oil industry, probably.
Not industry, yeah. When it's an industry funded study, you know, that's a commercial advertisement.
Right. It doesn't take much. I think that if people would just look at the source and who promoted these studies, it's an eye opener.
Well, the media loves something sensational, and that's always a problem as well. But I'm confident that in the long run, science will prevail. For example, when have they ever taken a group of patients seriously ill with cardiovascular disease, fed them a Mediterranean diet, and showed that they could halt and reverse the disease? Doesn't happen. Now, that's something that we're very happy because we've had a study, our original small study was of close to 12 years, showing in this small group of patients seriously ill with cardiovascular disease not only could we successfully halt progression of their disease, but we even showed evidence of disease reversal. And we were very seriously criticized because the study was small. And the critics said, well, this is a very significant nutritional change. What makes you think you could do this with a larger group and get similar results? So we repeated it. And this time in 2014, in the Journal of Family Practice, we reported 198 patients that we had followed close to 4 years. And of the 177, or close to 90%, 89.3% who adhered to the diet, really had literally no progression of major cardiac events. One little stroke. On the other hand, of the 21 patients who did not follow, 62% had follow-up progression of events.
When you talk about reversal of heart disease and the arteries themselves, eating all these greens, eating this way, they actually heal the arteries of the entire body. It's not just the heart, it's the arteries that go to the brain, to the legs, to the neck, correct?
Right.
Okay.
No, we have seen reversal in the arteries to the heart. We have seen reversal in the arteries to the brain, the carotid, and in the arteries that go to the leg. Yes.
What do you say to people when they look at you with a face of horror and say, do you actually eat carbs? You mean you eat pasta or pizza or potatoes or sweet potatoes? Okay, tell us about that, because there are people asking here about a diet that is kind of high in carbs.
Well, first of all, I think that we ought to be mentioning areas that we are in agreement. And that is that, no question, that simple carbohydrates are inappropriate and can be dangerous. I mean, you're looking at sugary drinks, white flour, perhaps even white rice, candies, fruit juices. Simple carbohydrates are really something where nobody's pushing. But when you talk about the food that is sustained civilization, what is it? It's carbohydrates. It's whole grains. It's these wonderful beans, 101 different types of beans and legumes, all these marvelous red, yellow, and green leafy vegetables. So safe, so filled with phytonutrients. I mean, when you eat a piece of meat, what are you getting? You're getting no fiber, right? Yeah. I mean, to have your stomach be the graveyard, the ultimate graveyard for some animal, is the animal gets the last say because it injures.
Correct.
Animal protein injures endothelium. Animal protein promotes cancer. I mean, look at the finally, the World Health Organization in October of 2015. Remember this. The World Health Organization is representing many, 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 many countries throughout the world, all with their own agenda. But here was one area where there was total agreement. It was long overdue that red meat now had the same level of carcinogenicity as smoking cigarettes. I mean, not a problem.
When
Right.
using potatoes, like sweet potatoes, white potatoes, eat the skin. That's where lots of the power is.
Correctly, and don't ruin those wonderful foods with topping them with those things. We won't even name them. The unnamed, the things that you mentioned earlier, Dr. Esselstyn. Everything that comes from an animal or the vegetable oils. Do you think it matters if you eat the skin, whether it is organic or not organic, or does it?
I think that there's probably when people can afford it, there is a preference to organic.
Okay.
But better to
still,
eat the.
Yeah, but if you can't get the organic, still you're gonna do well.
Yeah.
Whole food, plant-based nutrition. Yeah.
Well, I have to say I lost 75 pounds, and it was mostly eating potatoes, sweet potatoes, and all the vegetables that you mentioned. So it works. It's science. What you said earlier, science will prevail, and this is science.
Yeah, it's so puzzling and so disappointing in many ways to think that in this country there are many academic communities that are getting huge amounts of grant money to study all these molecules that are involved with the causation of heart disease, where if you really look at the bottom line of all that, why are these people working like crazy to figure out a molecule that they can block somehow and allow people to perhaps eat the most deadly diet on earth, the American diet, and try to get away with it? Why isn't a simpler answer to save all this money and literally look at the world and see, why have we created $1 billion health industry in this country for an illness that does not even exist in the rest of the world? Why not ask what we do, ask our patients to eat whole food, plant-based nutrition? We're not loading them up on drugs, because when you think about it, it was, 40 years ago when we had stents and we had bypasses and all these cardiovascular drugs. 40 years ago, the leading killer of women and men in Western civilization was cardiovascular disease. Well, now 40 years has gone by, and we've got more drugs, more stents, more bypasses. And guess what? Is the leading killer of women and men in Western civilization today still cardiovascular disease? Doesn't have to be. If we could make the message as enthusiastic, energetic, and strong as we are for all these research dollars, get the word out to the public. Have every cardiologist say that, listen, we can end this disease. I don't want to see you for another stent. I don't want to see you for another bypass. I want you to stop your disease. Here are these books on delicious whole food plant-based nutrition, which allows you to stop injuring your endothelium, halt your disease progression, and maybe even get disease reversal.
Prescriptions need to be for vegetables.
Do you know if there are any doctors or any programs out there that are trying to reach these doctors and make them aware of this? Because as I understand, in medical school, doctors don't really get much, if any, nutritional information. How can these doctors be made aware? They have busy lives, and they have I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think there are several remarkable things that are occurring. For example, there are two large organizations now, largely of physicians, both the Plantrician group and the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, both of which have thousands of physicians involved who are now embracing and committing themselves to whole food plant-based nutrition. Now, the ridiculously crazy thing that exists, though, is that while insurance will pay a physician handsomely to do something with in introducing a stent or doing bypass surgery, none of which have anything whatsoever to do with the causation of the illness. When a physician is willing to set aside time and talk about the causation of the illness, there is not really compensation. And it's very difficult to have physicians embrace a program for which they're not going to be compensated. But on the other hand, I still think the science is going to prevail. And I should share with you that it was about 4 years ago that I was invited to become a member of the American College of Cardiology. And I accepted because they wanted me to join their nutrition committee, because the nutrition committee of the American College of Cardiology is so aware that cardiologists get no training in nutrition, really, in essence, in medical school, nor do they get any additional training in their cardiovascular training about the importance of nutrition. And in other words, they're not learning about the causation of the illness which they have been designated to treat. So we're trying to have an influence in making that change.
Right. Well, you said a word that kind of made me think that you said about that these doctors are trained to treat. I guess treating is not the same as curing, right?
Absolutely correct. I'm totally aware of physicians or cardiologists who have told patients after they've gotten a stent or two, well, you'll be okay for a few years, but you'll be back here in 4 or 5 years, and we'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why not tell them, here's what you can do to halt and reverse this disease? And the nice thing about it is when you're eating plant-based foods, there's no additional expense, and you're not taking anything that's going to give you some harmful, deleterious side effect.
Yes, but I think that for a lot of doctors, they really don't believe that the patient is going to follow the diet.
I hear that all the time. But isn't it interesting that here now in Cleveland, we've had over 1,000 patients. What is it about the air here in Northern Ohio that makes people want to follow
this magic coordinates?
I will tell you why I think it is. If you are going to have somebody change their lifestyle, and let's say they've always treasured this Western diet, which looks good, smells good, tastes good, and they don't want to give it up. But what you have to do is you've got to show the patient respect. And the only way that I know of to show a patient respect is to give them my time.
Yes.
And doing that, because you're not going to get a lifestyle change in 10 or 15 minutes. But when you give a patient, as our present program does, in addition to a 20 or 30 minute initial phone call before they ever come, once they come to the seminar itself is 6 hours. 6 hours. When have they ever before had a physician spending 6 hours with them, explaining to them the science behind it and all the rationale and the reason about their endothelial cells and their nitric oxide? I mean, I would talk to patients, I'll bet you 90 out of 100 have never had a cardiologist talk to them about their endothelial cells or nitric oxide. But once they get it right, they understand that the only reason that they have their disease because it is by now they have so sufficiently trashed and injured their endothelial cell capacity to make nitric oxide. Why would they ever again want to have anything past their lips that is further going to injure more of their endothelial system and make them more liable to have a second heart attack or a third?
Dr. Esselstyn, I think we're about ready to. I know you have an appointment. Would you comment just a little bit about why you don't recommend nuts, seed and nuts to patients with cardiovascular disease?
Well, let's be honest about it. On page 69 of my book, I think I very clearly stated that for patients who do not have heart disease, I have no objection to their having nuts. Okay? Remember this, though. With nuts, how many people do you know who will eat one nut? Nuts really are really highly addicting. And if I ever say it's okay to have 3 walnut halves on your cereal, that's not what people would hear. They would say, my God, Dr. Esselstyn said nuts are okay. They'll be in the glove compartment. They'll be in the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom, the hallway, the living room. They're highly addicting. And nuts are loaded with saturated fat. And the interesting thing is that I have yet to see a single scientific study where patients who were seriously ill with cardiovascular disease were given a diet of peanut butter and nuts and cashew sauce and have their disease halt and reverse. As a matter of fact, many of the studies out there that are touting nuts have been funded by the nut companies. And when careful analysis is made of those studies, they are frequently found to be a commercial study set up in a way to favor. And there are certain investigators who seem to have a relationship with the nut companies, and they are the ones that are asked to do those studies. So, and recently I know of an observation where if they take somebody who has been eating carefully a low-fat diet, and then they proceed to give them a bolus of nuts, they eat the nuts, then they check the arterial flow. The pulsatile flow is injured, decreased, following the diet of nuts. Yes. On page 70, I say that, yes, while I restrict nuts in patients with heart disease, I'm not against their having chia seeds or flaxseed meal.
Okay. All right. What is your, to close this webinar, what are your thoughts about physical activity? Should we be concerned at all, or what type, or just focus on the diet only? No.
Well, yes, the diet. If patients, for instance, can't use their legs, they can't exercise, certainly the diet is still going to be very, very important. But exercise is a bonus. There's no question about that. And but exercise has to be sensible. For some patients, it may just consist of walking regularly. Others who are a little healthier or have better balance can bicycle, or they can swim. And
run.
Yes, certainly some patients can run. But running and exercise are a bonus, but you must listen to your body. You just can't go out if you have heart disease and go crazy with this. And, have your physician's advice and have them monitor your activity. But my key here is to listen to the body.
I want you to see our daughter, Jane. And
hello, Jane. So nice
Jane has done the recipes in all these many books, including the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease Cookbook, but she also has started what do you call it, Jane?
Oh, we have a YouTube channel. My mom and I have a YouTube channel, and she always it's called YouTube. I did not invent YouTube. She thinks I invented YouTube. through recipes, and sometimes the recipes in the books, and you can follow along. Sometimes there's just random recipes that we want to share, and
But they're kind of fun.
Yes, I saw the recipes. They're fun. Yes.
okay. Well, and the if anybody's listening, I'm not sure. I just walked in the doors. I don't know what's going on, but it's just YouTube and then Jane Esselstyn.
Okay, I will put it on the screen later on. We'll put that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Do you have any plans for update to your book, Dr. Esselstyn?
You mean will I write a second book, or will I rewrite this one? Yeah, those are all distinct possibilities if we get the
If
time.
he can get off the phone, he's out of the
Yes, yes. Well, thank you, Jane, for stopping by and making these videos. We really enjoy them, and I will let people know about them.
I have just a closing statement, if I may.
Yes, please.
I think the thing that makes me so passionate about medicine today is the fact that we are truly on the cusp of what could be a seismic revolution in health. And that seismic revolution in health is never going to come about from the invention of another pill, another drug, another stent, or another procedure. That seismic revolution in health will come about when we show the public the absolute lifestyle, and most specifically, the nutritional literacy that will empower them as the locus of control to absolutely annihilate not just heart disease, but really 85% of chronic illness. Thank you, Gustavo, so much.
Oh, thank you, all of you three. You know this, but we have to say you three of you and your son as well. You have saved and continue to save so many thousands of lives. You're just angels on this planet. Thank you.
And you play the music to make everybody happy.
Thank you.
Right, exactly. The way you gotta do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.